Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. I wasn't realizing it was going to end as quickly then. So, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. Today is Friday. If you're watching live, it's Friday, the 6th of December. So, it's the 6th day of Christmas, I suppose. We're nearly there. We're getting there. Just a couple of weeks to go. I hope you're all getting prepared for Christmas. I hope you're looking forward to Christmas. If you're not looking forward to Christmas, then I hope you'll enjoy watching some videos about true crime, inspirational true crime leading up to Christmas with us. Hopefully we can cheer you up a bit. We'll be having a Christmas special. Don't forget to send in the photos of your Christmas jumpers or anything Christmassy to the email. So, because at Christmas I'll be doing a Christmas special and I want to be able to show some Christmassy photos. What else do I want? So let's put on my banner, my thank you banner. Now today's video is very special, I think. Because it's an inspirational story of survivors of unspeakable evil. And, you know, the reason I'm sort of mentioning that as I'm coming on to say my thanks is we must always say thanks, mustn't we? Every day, there's always something to be thankful for. Even though, you know, our lives might not be perfect. There might be things that are really quite seriously wrong in our lives. There are things that we'll be worrying about. It could be money, it could be mental health, it could be physical health, it could be relationship problems, bereavement. Oh, you name it. There's so many things to worry about, aren't there, in life? But, you know, what I think after you've watched this video, you might feel a little bit different to see how one person in particular, I mean, there are lots of people out there that have overcome adversity. Maybe you too. I think I've overcome adversity a few times. But this person has overcome incredible adversity that we can't even imagine, or most of us, if we're lucky, can't even imagine. So there's always something to be thankful for. And that this person seems to feel that, doesn't seem to have touched them in the way that we feel, you know, it could have crushed anyone what this person's been through, and it hasn't. So I want to start off with the thanks on that note. So what I'm thankful for all you. I'm thankful for all you who watch me, who subscribe to my channel, who like my videos, who become members, who gift memberships, all of you that support my channel in any way, the ones that you PayPal me, send me Ko-fis, or send me super stickers, or you just participate in a positive way on my channel. That's what I'm thankful for. I mean, lots of other things I'm thankful for too, but that's what I'm thankful for every day. That's what keeps me going with the channel. You know, it's funny with my channel. I was thinking about it. You know, if I don't chase the algorithm ever. You know, it's just not. I don't do videos that I think will get more clicks or more views or more watch. I do videos that I'm interested in. Either the case, or I see it and I think, oh, I want to talk about that. That's what matters to me, is creating interesting content, both for you and for me. Sometimes I watch my own videos back and is that terrible? I don't know. And I think, oh, I really enjoyed that video. Because obviously, as I'm actually doing a live, I'm not I'm enjoying it, but I'm not enjoying like listening to it. I don't know how it's coming over to all the viewers. I only know what I'm saying. I get caught up in what I'm saying, and I don't know how it looks from the other side. So it's quite often, not as much as I used to. When I first started off, I used to play every single video back and watch it. Now, not so much, just some that I'm maybe not sure of. And I think, oh, I hope that came over okay. And I play it back, and I do enjoy, you know, maybe that's wrong, but I do enjoy watching my videos back sometimes, because I feel like I get more out of it that way than when I'm actually doing it, in the sense of registering what I'm saying. Here's Riley for his photo bomb. Come on then, you know he likes to come up for his photo bomb. Come on. So I'll probably play this back and watch it, because this story I find exceptionally interesting. Maybe you won't, but I think you will. Hello, baby. Here's Riley. Hello. He's having your little... No, look at the camera. Look at the camera. Don't look at me. Look at the camera. Look. Are you looking? Oh, he's sort of looking. Oh, looking at the camera. So, yeah, he likes to have a photobomb, doesn't he, on every video. Now, so I'm going to light the candles first. And the candles I'm lighting today, not only for the person I'm going to talk about in this video, the survivor, but the baddie, if you like, in this video, the twonk, the serial killer that I'm going to talk about in this video. He left many victims behind, a definite 22 victims, and he claims to have had 70 victims. So the candles are lit for those people as well. A lot of, he was only ever found guilty of one murder, but you know, that was enough. But it's a shame really for the 22 that the police have definitely confirmed that they think he did, and for the 70 that he claims that he did, you know, their families will never know for sure. That's a shame, isn't it? Anyway, never mind. At least he was found guilty. He's met, you know, his punishment. We're going to talk about that. We don't have to worry about him anymore. Let's put it that way. So I'm going to light a candle, the 4 candles that I light, because I haven't got one big one, basically. I light 4 small ones, because I haven't got one big candle. And these candles are for the survivor that we're going to talk about, Krystal. But also for this horrible man that I'm going to tell you about, for his other victims, because there were lots of other victims as well. And then, as we know, it's not only victims, it's their families, his family as well, because he wasn't very nice to his family. His family sort of dissociated themselves from him for various reasons that I'm going to tell you about. So yeah, a prayer for anyone who because of this horrible man that we are going to talk about, because of this horrible man that we're going to talk about, is a victim in any way, shape or form. But of course, as you know, these candles are also lit for all of us who need a candle lighting for us. If you ever would like me to light a candle, especially for either you or for one of your loved ones, either in this world or in the next, just send me an email. I'll light a candle for them, no problem. You know, it may not seem like a big thing, but it is a big thing. As soon as you think about somebody, even if it's someone who's passed into the next world, then it's got to be a positive, hasn't it? Just thinking about them, saying their name are positives. You know, it might not make any difference to the situation, but it brings a bit of positivity and a bit of comfort maybe to people. Right. So I'm going to say hello to whoever's here, and then I'm going to start with this story. Now, I hope you enjoy, maybe is not the right word, but I hope you find this story interesting, and I hope you find it as inspirational as I did. Because to me, when you know, we all feel down, as I say, from time to time. Sometimes it can be a little thing that really pisses you off, because it might be the icing on the cake of a lot of big things, and then one little thing happens, and that might be what breaks, you know, the straw that breaks the camel's back, and you go into a depression or you get upset or whatever. And I just hope that this story that I'm about to tell you makes you feel as sort of good as it makes, even though it's a sad story, because it involves, you know, obviously a crime, a terrible crime, and lots of crimes that this man committed. It's also, I think, a really inspiring story to show us how strong we can be. And you cannot let evil win over good, because there is good and evil in this world, whether you believe in God or not. You know, you have to, even if you're a Satanist, you have to believe then that there's bad and there's good, you know, and we're constantly fighting against good and bad, aren't we? Even in little ways, you know, little things that we do that we perhaps shouldn't do, but we do them. We're always fighting with our conscience one way or another. And some people, of course, who are really evil are fighting for their conscience daily, but unfortunately the evil normally wins out. And then you get people who are really good, where the good always wins out. And then you get probably the rest of us, which is somewhere in the middle, but not so evil that we go around murdering people, but maybe we do things that not quite probably we should do, or say things. Sometimes we get carried away and say things we regret, or none of us are perfect, that's for sure. If you think you are, well, I'm sorry, I'm here to tell you that you're not. But anyway, let me say hello to everybody. Then I'm waffling again. I'm doing a lot of waffling lately. Well, I say lately, I've always waffled. Hi, Shelley. Good morning. Enjoy your coffee. Hi, David. Hi, Angel. Hi, Kelly. Hi, Daniel. Hi, Laurie. Now you're all saying hello to each other. Everyone always likes to see Riley, don't they? Okay. Thank you for the candles. So, right, let me have a little drink of Coke and then I'll get on with it. Now, as I started researching this, I happened upon a video, and I have to say that the story I'm going to tell about Krystal is, most of the information is from this episode of 48 Hours. Don't know if you watch 48 Hours. It's a brilliant YouTube story, I think, a YouTube channel, and of course it's on the TV as well. 48 Hours, and this is based on Krystal's courage. When I say it's based on, I mean, I've put it's completely different what I'm going to tell you, but the main story was this video that I watched, and I can, a lot of the things I'm going to be telling you are information that I've got from this episode of 48 Hours, which is called Krystal's Courage, which tells the story of this 10-year-old girl who survived a serial killer. But it's not as straightforward as that, if you like, because when I started researching it, then I think there's a lot. I was thinking, what take am I going to put on this story? What's my take on it? How does it strike me? And I think, although this, as I say, this is a story of many victims in one way, because it was Krystal's survival story that brought this man to justice finally. But he had so many other victims, that they shouldn't be forgotten either. But this story is principally about Krystal and how she survived, and also how then she helped at 10 years old to bring him to justice. And without Krystal, and without her strength, without her courage, without her unfailing sort of optimism and everything, this man might never have been brought to justice. And then there's other people that have, how can I put it? There's another case in particular. There's somebody who's been released from a conviction that was thought to have been them who did something. And it turned out it was this man who did it. So that's another person who's been sort of released, if you like, or saved by Krystal's strength and resilience, surviving this guy. And that I'm going to tell you about as well. So where we're going to start. Let's look at some pictures of the people that are concerned in this case. So this is a serial killer. Now, you may not have heard of him. I don't think he's one of the most well-known serial killers. He's got a bit of a look of Peter Sutcliffe, hasn't he? The Yorkshire Ripper. His name is Tommy Lynn Sells. And he was only charged with one murder, which is the murder of Krystal's friend, the case that we're going to look at. But the police are convinced, or pretty sure, that he committed at least 20 murders, and he himself confessed to 70 murders. But they can't, no other ones have been sort of corroborated. So Tommy Lee Sells, who is he? Well, he was born on January the 26th, January the 28th in 1964. And he had a difficult childhood. He had a very difficult childhood. And that's the sort of the way I want to look at this video, because, you know, in my opinion, doesn't matter, you know, quite often people's childhoods are brought up, aren't they, as reasons why they did things. I don't believe that, because I know for a fact from personal experience and from other people that I know, you can be dragged up and you don't turn into someone like this guy. This guy turned into what he was because he was evil. He was evil. I do believe people are born evil. And I think this particular relationship between him and Krystal. Let's have a look at Krystal. So I've got a picture. This is Krystal at 10, when she was in intensive care because that man had slit her throat. Now, the thing about Krystal is she had a terrible childhood too. She was brought up by drug addicts. She was the mother in the family. She was that child at school by her own, what she says herself. She was the child that turned up at school, had to walk to school, had not had a proper shower, not had a proper wash, didn't have any clothes to go to school in because her parents were drug addicts and they didn't look after her. She was treated terribly in that sense. She brought up her siblings. She was like the mother. At 10 years old, she was like the mother to her two sisters. You know, she was the one who had to look after them, make sure they were okay, whereas she was just completely neglected. But she had just as bad, if not worse, some might say, childhood as the twonk. So he turned out to be a serial killer and sex offender, and she turned out to be a survivor and a caregiver to her siblings and an inspiration to everyone. I mean, honestly, I feel up thinking about it. This is her now. And this story that I'm going to tell you about what happened the night that her world collided with that of Tommy Sells. It was like their worlds collided, but it's illustrated to me the difference between someone who's born bad. I think this man, he could have had a fabulous childhood. He could have been brought up by the best parents in the world. He could have, you know, been rich. He could have been privileged. He still would have been turned out the way he would because it's in him from birth. That's my opinion. And that opinion has developed over years. It's my view. You know, some people won't agree with it. Some people think, you know, conditions make people into twonks. I don't believe that. And I think this case is a prime example of why someone like Krystal, who had just as bad upbringing, if not worse than him, turned out to be such a positive influence on the world, if you like, an inspirational influence. And the other guy, he turned out to be a twonk because he was born a twonk. I'm sorry, I think he was. I don't think it would have mattered. I'm not saying that he did have a bad childhood. He didn't have as bad a childhood as Krystal did. He had some bad things happen in his childhood. His father died when he was only 10. But by 10, she was having her throat slit by him. You know, by 10 years old, she was having her throat slit by him. And he's whinging on that his father died when he was 10. No, at least he didn't have his throat slit at 10. Maybe someone should have slit his throat at 10, and then a lot of people would have not had such misery in their lives because of him. So, you know, I just don't go with all this crap. Anyway, so let me tell you a little bit about him. So his father died when he was 11. Apparently, let me get my glasses because I've not got really good light in here to read my notes. So his father died when he was 11, and apparently he was drinking alcohol from the age of 7. So before his father died. He says, and again, these are things that we only have his word for, because these are things that he said after he was arrested and etc. He says that a friend of his mother's abused him, which of course is awful, and if it's true, and he says that his mother encouraged this abuse. Again, do we know that this is true? Has she said that? I mean, this is the sort of thing that often people who are accused of murder, etc., they come out with things like this because he's trying to get off with it. He's trying to prove, that he's been abused. And I still say, to me, that doesn't even matter. How many people have been abused and don't go on and abuse or murder other people? It's not an excuse. Being abused is not an excuse for abusing other people, other children. Anyway, when he was 13, he got into his grandma's bed nude and terrified her because she thought he was going to do something to her. In the end, his mother and his siblings, they abandoned him, and he started living rough, or living, what's the word? He was homeless, I suppose. He started living as a nomad or as a drifter from the age of 14. So that's young, of course. But why did his mother abandon? Now, what you've got to remember is she was probably terrified of him and she had the other siblings to protect. Now, I don't know what he was doing at that time, but what if he was trying to attack his other siblings? Sometimes that's a choice you have to make in families. I know personally of people whose siblings have not been protected by their siblings that were making their life a misery. So there's what's the alternative? I feel like this mother probably took the siblings away to get away from him because they're probably all scared of him. And that was confirmed because when he was 17, when his mother allowed him to visit their home, asked to, had a family gathering and invited him, he tried to sexually assault her in the shower at the age of 17. So he's tried to assault his grandma, he's tried to assault his own mother. By the time he's 17, really, he's done quite a few things. Anyway, he was diagnosed with lots of different mental illnesses, personality disorder, bipolar, you name it, he had it. But again, I don't believe that they're the reasons that he did these things. I think he did these things because he's just a bad person. That's my opinion. That's my view on it. Other people might disagree and think, because then when he was very young, when he was about 7, I think, he had meningitis, him and one of his siblings. Let's see, how old was he? He and one of his siblings had meningitis, which is an awful illness, especially for children, isn't it? And quite often children die with meningitis. His sister, his sibling who had it, she did die, but he survived it. But it seems like he had a lot of substance issues, drinking especially, alcohol especially. They were only 18 months. So he was only 18 months old when he got meningitis. And his twin sister, Tammy Jean, she also contracted meningitis. She died and he survived. So, he's had a difficult childhood. I'll agree with that, but I don't think that's the reason he did the horrible things he did. I think he was a horrible person, full stop, in my opinion. Anyway, basically, from 14, he got involved in lots of petty crime as well. And then, of course, there's all these murders. As I say, 20 murders that the police are convinced that he did do. And the murder that finally caught him was the murder of Krystal's friend. Well, the night that Krystal was attacked, she was staying at the house or the trailer of Kaylene Harris, who was 13 at the time. And this was Krystal's friend, and we're going to have a look at a photo of her shortly. And while they were in the same room, she was sexually assaulted. Kaylene was sexually assaulted by this twonk. She was stabbed 16 times, and then her throat was slashed. And so this story is really about how Krystal was also attacked on the same night. So let me give you a bit of a background to that actual evening. Because by then, Lynn Sells, he was just drifting around America. You know, these crimes that he committed, they were all over the place. This final crime, this was the final crime he committed because it was because of Krystal's strength, bravery, resilience that he was convicted finally for this crime. And he's only ever been convicted for that murder. That was the end of his reign of terror. But he'd been all over America. He'd been drifting all around America, committing crimes willy-nilly, really. But he ended up in where this happened was in Del Rio in Texas. Let's just have a look where that is. So Del Rio is here. Got Texas, Fort Worth, Dallas. Over the other side, we've got Arizona, Phoenix, etc. So it was round here. This is where he did his last crime, but he committed crimes all over the place. This was his final crime in Del Rio, Texas. Let me just get the Del Rio back up. Oh. Google Maps, it does jump around a lot. Here. So that's where this actual crime happened. But as I say, he'd committed lots of other crimes as well. So let's have a little bit of a background as to what was happening on that evening. So as I was saying to you, Krystal, she was only 10 at the time, and she had been virtually bringing up her own siblings because her parents were both drug addicts. They were trying to get their lives back together. Her mum had separated from her dad and cleaned up her act, and she'd gone off. She was trying to build a home for them, and she wanted to get the children back, you know, because now she was clean from drugs. But it was in a process. So they were staying with their friends. So her and her siblings, they were staying with their friends. And in that 48 hours episode that I was telling you about, it's very interesting to hear a sister talk. And that particular night when they all went to bed, that her sister, one of her sisters, wanted to go in the same room that Krystal was sleeping with her friend. And they wouldn't let her. And she was fuming. She was fuming. You know what it's like when you're young, because she was like that's smaller than them. I mean, Krystal was only 10. Her friend Kaylene Harris was 13. But I think Krystal probably had an old head on her shoulders, didn't she? You know, by the sound of it, seeing how she'd been practically bringing up her siblings. So Krystal went to sleep with Katie in her room. And Krystal's sister was refused. She said she couldn't go and she couldn't be in there. It was for like the big girls. So Krystal's sister was fuming. That's what she says on this. It's so funny to hear her say it, because I can just imagine where it's like, you know, it's like, no, you can't come and sleep with us because you're just a little girl. You know, we're like the big girls and we're going to have big girls conversation. And anyway, so she said she was fuming. It took her 2 hours to get to sleep, because she was so angry. She wanted to sleep with them. She wanted to go in the big girls' room. And then when she did wake up in the morning, eventually she went off sleep. She never heard a thing. All this that happened that night in that trailer, she never heard a thing. And she woke up in the morning and she said there was a woman standing there gave her some clothes and said, oh, look, put these clothes on, we've got to go. A woman she didn't know, it's probably a policewoman, I suppose. And she got the clothes on and she went outside. She said there was blood everywhere. Blood all through the trailer, blood outside, blood everywhere. All the police were there and she didn't even know. She hadn't heard a thing. Luckily for her, she did not hear anything. Because otherwise she might not be here to tell the story either. So anyway, it turned out what had happened was this man, some man who they didn't know at the time, had entered in that trailer, and poor Krystal, this was Krystal at the time, well, this was afterwards in the hospital, poor Krystal had woken up to see her friend. I think I've got Katie. I've got a picture of her somewhere. Let's see if I can find it. Sorry, I should have had it there. Let me share it. Yeah, because she is part of this story as well. Unfortunately, she was not saved. So this is her friend who was 13, Katie Harris. Now, she was the target, let's say, in this attack. I don't know whether the twonk knew she lived there, had seen her going in there or whatever, but that's who he was targeting. And he had assaulted her in an sex way. And poor Krystal woke up just to see him slitting her friend's throat. She said he literally just pulled her head back and slit her throat, and she just collapsed on the floor. And Krystal just sat there in the bed watching, like you can imagine, deer in the headlight, eyes wide. And at first he didn't see her. And he was just about to leave the room. He was just about to turn the light off. And he turned round one more time. And he saw her in the bed, lying in the bed, watching. So he came in, he got his knife, the same knife that he just used to kill her friend, and or to slit her throat anyway, she wasn't deceased yet. And he saw little 10-year-old girl, terrified in the corner, looking at him with eyes wide. And he went over to her and did exactly the same to her. Pulled her head back and slit her throat. Then he went out, he turned the light off, and he closed the door. So this little girl, this little 10-year-old girl, was in that room with her 13-year-old friend who was choking out her last breath because she was gurgling. And she said she went over to her and she held her hand and rubbed her back. Sorry. And, said to it, it'll be all right, it'll be all right. So don't forget, because this girl, although she was only 10 at the time, because she'd brought up her siblings, her parents being drug addicts, and she'd been like the mother to her siblings. So she's rubbing her friends back and saying, it'll be all right, it'll be all right. Anyway, eventually her friends stopped making any noise, and she knew, I think, inside that her friend was deceased. So she decided that the only way she was going to survive is to get help. So she got up. I don't know how she did it. She got up, she left the trailer, and off she went to a neighbour's house. Knocked on the door, and anyway, police were called and the ambulance was called. And she was rushed to hospital. And this is her in the hospital. And she survived. So this little 10-year-old girl survived this brutal attack from this absolute horrible person. So, sorry, just get a deep breath. That's where we were then. And because of, this is the guy. These are various stages of this guy. So this is the photo fit. The artist sketch that once she recovered enough to be able to talk, because she couldn't talk, as you can imagine. She had a vocal cord slit. She couldn't talk for ages, but when she could, she helped them draw this sketch of the guy who had done this. And of course, this was him when he was arrested. He was arrested very shortly afterwards. That was him when he was arrested. This is him in prison. This is him laughing and joking with the guards when he was being transported. And this is him, I think, at more or less the age at 49, because he didn't get any further than that, let's just say, without spoiling what happens to him, which, yeah. So he was caught, and then it comes out all these different things that he's probably done. He's a serial killer who's drifted all over America, committing crimes left, right, and centre. Various things that came up. Let me just make sure you're all okay in chat. Hi, Yvonne. Hi, Dry Spell. No. I hope I've missed so much chat. I hope I haven't missed people coming in. If I have, I'm sorry. Hi, Jojo. I know. Anyway, I hope I've said hello to you all. If I've forgotten anybody, it's not I've forgotten you. I've just, then when I was on a rant, then I forget to go and look in chat. So yeah, it does look different in all those photos. They are like chameleons, these people, aren't they, really? You know, and what the photo that gets me the most is this one of him just laughing with the guards. And I saw him, he came off a plane, you know, they were flying him from one place to another. And he's like shaking the guards' hands, you know, like he's Mr. fucking Congeniality, like he's not really a murderer of a 13-year-old. So let's not forget her friend was only 13. You know, she was 10, but 13's not only 3 years more, isn't it? He brutally assaulted and murdered her, but he's murdered younger children than that, let me tell you. So one of the things that, so there's lots of things that came out from the trial. Where do I go to next? Because I've got a few things that I want to tell you about that I know you'll find interesting. So part of the reason, obviously, that he was found guilty was that Krystal could identify him. You know, when this little girl recovered and they asked her if she would go into court and testify against him, she said, yeah. She said, I wanted to go and, you know, they were like, oh, we can do it by video link if you want. She said, no, you know, and they said, oh, we can arrange it so you go into the courtroom from a different door so you don't have to walk past him. She said, no, I want to walk past him. I want to look at him. I'm not scared of him anymore. And by now, she was still only a child. So that's the one bit of this documentary that I'm going to show you, because it may pull me up for copyright. You know, they don't. I know I've shown things from 48 Hours before, and much as I love 48 Hours, they're really good, but they don't like you showing their videos normally, even, you know, in under fair use. So we're just going to watch one little bit. They may pull me up for copyright, but I'll just have to delete it then. But I think it's just so important. So this is the courtroom. There's the twonk. I think that's him, actually. Because you wouldn't recognise him there because he's got a suit and tie on. He's all like butter wouldn't melt. So she comes into the courtroom, walks right past him. So bearing in mind that by now she's probably only 11 or 12, but she wanted to walk past him. There, she just looked at him. She wanted to look at him.
To see her walk into that courtroom with her chest out as she took the witness stand, she was there for business. And
oh, now this guy, this is Harold Dow. He used to be a regular presenter on 48 Hours. He's no longer with us, so rest in peace, Harold. But he's such a lovely man, and you can see. So he covered this case. for this 48 hours episode and that, and he got to know Krystal and the family and everything. And it affected him a lot because he has daughters. Anyone who has daughters, anyone who has nieces, anyone who has sisters, everyone can relate to this girl, the strength and the resilience to walk into that courtroom past that man who she now knows has murdered lots of people, not only her best friend. The strength, with a scar right across her throat where he's tried to kill her, just for nothing, just so she couldn't identify him.
She did it.
Because his hand was over her mouth.
So here she is in the courtroom giving her testimony, bless her.
His hand was over her mouth.
His hand.
But when I got up there and then had to talk.
So this is her now, and she's saying that she was so strong as she walked past him and she got onto the stand, but then when she had to point him out, she did crumble a little bit.
That's when my nerves came. I had to point him out and look at him and say, that guy.
The man with the blue jacket.
And there he is. Well, at least he's got the grace to look at the floor. God, how did he feel? Surely he must have felt some remorse.
Jacket and the glasses.
Yes.
That's whenever I realized that guy is right there.
Now, Krystal, if you need for me to stop at some point in time, I'll stop.
I tried not to focus.
So I can't really play much more because they will pick me up. But the other thing she had to do, she had to lie on a table in the courtroom as if she was in bed and show, how she was, how it happened. So she had to show how she went to sit up and then he came and just slit her throat. She had to explain, she had to point him out again and say it was him that did it. She had to show them her scar, so she had to do a lot of things. In the meantime, he was just sat there with his legs shaking like mad. This leg shaking, it's a big thing, isn't it? I remember Chris Watts doing that. His legs shaking like mad when the family impact statements and stuff. What is it? Is it like an unconscious reaction of guilt of some kind or embarrassment? I don't know where it is. We might be able to see it. Let's see if I can find it where he was doing it. I could show you probably some stills. Yeah. So she did get upset in the court. She did get upset in the end. And this is her mum. So this is her mum. So bear in mind, her mum had been a drug addict. I mean, this is obviously years later. But her mum had cleaned up her act by then. She wasn't on drugs anymore. And the girl, Krystal, had said to her mum beforehand, because her mum was going to be there in court, she said, please don't cry when you're in the court, because if you start crying, I will just collapse, So her mum that's what mum's talking about here. She was saying, I wanted to cry. I wanted to run up to her and give her a cuddle. And I couldn't, and she told me not to cry and I had to just sit there stone-faced and not show any emotion, just, psychologically send my strength over to her. So she just, this little girl, she's like the mum, she's like the mum in this relationship, isn't she? So she had to point out where a scar was, what he did. I wonder if I can find the bit where he was. There he is again.
No more questions.
For him.
So his defense attorney had no questions for her. So there was no, he didn't cross-examine her. I think these defense attorneys, another case I'm going to bring to you. Sometimes I do think the defense attorneys, I know they've got to do their job and everything, and they know that, but sometimes you can see that he's hating it, this guy. He started crying when the verdict came in. The verdict was guilty. I'll give you a spoiler alert there. The verdict was guilty, and it was decided, and also they voted to give him the death penalty. he was crying. The defense lawyer, that's, you know, when it's cases with children like this, he may have daughters, you know, so that's a hard, let me see. Yeah, there's nothing else. Oh, just let me show this. This is her sister, the one that who wanted to go and sleep in that room that night. Thank God she wasn't in that room, because she could have been murdered as well, or had her throat slit. So, yeah, it's a very good episode that I would definitely recommend you watching, that episode of 48 Hours, Krystal's story. It's a very interesting episode, and it'll make you cry, but in a nice way. You know, it make you cry in a way, and it'll make you feel, I don't know, that your problems aren't so. That's how it makes, you know, all our little problems, you know, and they're not always little problems. That's probably not fair. You know, sometimes they are big problems that we have, but they're probably not problems like we've had our throat slit by some psycho. You know, probably not anyway. Okay. So where am I going to go now? So anyway, so he was found guilty of that one murder, and he was sentenced to death. So the police, for some reason, didn't go forward with the other prosecutions. Even the trouble is, if you go forward with other prosecutions, sometimes that can delay, like the sentence, the death sentence or whatever. And anyway, that's, I don't know about the families of those other persons, if they would have rather preferred that he was, you know, actually tried for the murder of their loved ones so that they had closure that way, or whether they were just happy that he was given the death penalty. And he was executed. He was 49 years old when he was executed. We're going to look at a little interview with him as well, and you get it, because if you think he's a twonk now, wait till you see the interview with him, then you know he definitely is a twonk. I don't even believe in the death penalty, and she actually, Krystal said herself, she doesn't believe in the death penalty. You know, so it wasn't because she or her family pursued the death penalty. It was the jurors that decided to give him the death penalty, and the judge agreed. And that, so, you know, it's not that she's a person who believes in the death penalty, even after everything that he took away from her and her family, and that her friends' family and other people's family. Anyway, he's dead. He's gone now. He'll be facing his justice in the next world. I hope he's burning in hell, or paying for his sins, or whatever. And he've met all his victims. You know, it makes you wonder, isn't it, you know, when these serial killers, because serial killers are hard to catch. He was only caught because of Krystal surviving. You know, she was his last victim. Her and her friend were his last victims. They are hard to catch because they've got no connection to the victims, and they travel all over the country, you know, at will. So they're so difficult to catch. Probably a bit easier now because of DNA, etc. Another thing that probably DNA has changed. Maybe they're easier to catch now. Maybe there'll never be another serial killer the same as there used to be in the sort of in the years before DNA, because maybe they'll get caught so much quicker. But he had the death penalty. So I've forgotten what I was saying now, because I've got carried away with it. Anyway, so while he was in prison awaiting the death penalty, he was writing to a woman, an author was writing to him, talking about his crimes, etc. Because that quite often happens, isn't it? So at the end of the day, when they're on death row, or anyone in prison, they've not got much else to do. So if anyone writes them a letter and, you know, tries to get into a conversation with them, they do quite often end up sending letters. So what else have they got to do, you know? And I think they get off a little bit in revisiting their crimes, don't they? Telling someone about them. You know, they can't commit any more crimes because they're in prison, but what they can do is relive, you know, their glory years as a serial killer. Anyway, this person got talking to him and unearthed another murder. And not only another murder, but a terrible miscarriage of justice, because somebody had just been convicted for this murder. And this was the murder of a little boy. And the mother had been convicted for murdering her own child. And it turned out it wasn't, she'd said that a man had broken into the house and attacked her little boy. And nobody believed her because, sometimes parents do say things like that, don't they? And they're not true. Anyway, nobody believed this woman. And she was found guilty of the murder of her own son. And he, during these letters with this author, he actually not only confessed to it, because you can confess to a murder, but then the police have to look into it and make sure it all checks out, because people do confess to murders they haven't done. But when the police checked into it, his story of what he said happened checked out. So it was him who'd murdered this little boy, and the mother, who'd been put in prison for murdering her own child, was released. So let's have a look at that. See, where is it? Let me put some window. Need to put some windows down. Okay. Well, let me share this.
Tonight on 2020 with Barbara Walters and John Miller.
ABC 2020 does the story of Julie's case within a few months after she's convicted. And for the first time, Julie tells what happened in her own words.
Somebody jumped on me or at me, and I didn't know what was going on.
One of the people watching that night was Diane Fanning, who's a crime writer.
Did you kill your son, Joel?
No.
I think Julie agreed to talk to us because she was out of options.
At the time, Diane Fanning is working on her first book, which is about a serial killer named Tommy Lynn Sells.
Tommy Lynn Sells is on death row for attempting to murder two small girls. I mean, these girls are not much older than Joel.
Tommy Lynn Sells is on death row for the slashing murder of 13-year-old Kaylene Harris, also attacked with a knife a 10-year-old girl sleeping in the same room.
I woke this girl up. She tried to come over here, and I stabbed her. And this little girl up here, I walked over here, and I went like this.
After he slit my throat, I just laid there, and then he left.
I decided to write about Tommy Lynn Sells because of the last little girl he tried to murder. She survived, and she became my hero.
I got up and went down to the neighbors. I just went as fast as I could.
Oh.
Diane Fanning was sort of pen pals. She had gone and interviewed Tommy Lynn Sells many times, but in between wrote letters with him.
I was almost finished writing my book when I sat down to watch 2020. So I'm listening to Julie Ray herself talking about how she did not kill her 10-year-old boy. And then the prosecutor came on.
To believe her, you would have to believe that this assailant came into her home for the sole purpose of killing a 10-year-old boy. And yet he also forgot to bring a murder weapon along and used her kitchen knife to do it with. Total nonsense.
Sells had done that on more than one occasion. He often didn't bring weapons with him.
So after watching 2020, Diane sits down and writes Sells a letter.
The other night, I was watching a story on TV about a woman who claimed someone broke into her house and listened to the prosecuting attorney. A person does not come into someone else's home without a weapon and then pull a knife out of the kitchen drawer in the house and use it. I thought that the crime could have been committed by somebody who was very much like Tommy Lynn Sells. And I did not tell him the name of the prosecutor, the name of the case, the town where it occurred, the time when it occurred, nothing like that.
Tommy Lynn Sells writes back, and Diane Fanning is just absolutely blown away.
Tommy responded by writing, about that woman claims someone broke into her house. Was that like maybe 2 days before my Springfield, Missouri murder? Maybe on a 13th? I was shocked. Joel was.
No, it makes me go cold, this, because he knew he'd murdered someone 2 days later. And he the way he's casually saying that, oh, was that just before my Illinois murder? Sometime around the 13th. It just makes you feel cold, doesn't it? Because I think it is hard to imagine why somebody would break into a house and murder someone just for the sake of it. You know, I think that's what the prosecutor was trying to say. Who would break into a house and just murder a 10-year-old boy for the sake of it? And of course, the mother was the prime suspect because, you know, she was the one who was in the house. And mothers do, unfortunately, murder their children as well, don't they, for whatever reason. And it was a knife from inside the house. But it was, you know, so anyway. But then Tommy Sells, he knew the exact date that murder had happened. She hadn't mentioned the date to him.
Was murdered on the 13th. And Stephanie Mahaney in Springfield, Missouri on the 15th of that month.
This serial killer on death row nails the exact date of Joel's murder, October the 13th. That's 2 days before he's believed to have kidnapped, sexually assaulted, and killed Stephanie Mahaney.
So, I mean, let's just watch that one more time. Anyway, she's been released, the mother, now, because there was no trial of it. I mean, if we take the other hand of it, don't think he'd killed any other boys. It was mainly women, girls that he killed. Though he had to kill. I'll have a look actually while you're watching this, because on another page that I've got open, it does say his different victims. I'll see if he killed any other boys.
Tonight on 2020 with Barbara Walters and John Miller.
ABC 2020 does the story of Julie's case within a few months after she's convicted. And for the first time, Julie tells what happened in her own words.
Somebody jumped on me or at me, and I didn't know what was going on.
One of the people watching that night was Diane Fanning, who's a crime writer.
Did you kill your son, Joel?
No.
I think Julie agreed to talk to us because she was out of options.
At the time, Diane Fanning is working on her first book, which is about a serial killer named Tommy Lynn Sells.
Tommy Lynn Sells is on death row for attempting to murder 2 small girls. I mean, these girls are not much older than Joel.
Tommy Lynn Sells is on death row for the slashing murder of 13-year-old Kaylene Harris. Also attacked with a knife, a 10-year-old girl sleeping in the same room.
I woke this girl up. She tried to come over here, and I stabbed her. And this little girl up here, I walked over here, and I went like this.
After he slit my throat, I just laid there, and then he left.
I decided to write about Tommy Lynn Sells because of the last little girl he tried to murder. She survived, and she became my hero.
I got up and went down to the neighbors. I just went as fast as I could.
Diane Fanning was sort of pen pals. She had gone and interviewed Tommy Lynn Sells many times, but in between wrote letters with him.
I was almost finished writing my book when I sat down to watch 2020. So I'm listening to Julie Ray herself talking about how she did not kill her 10-year-old boy. And then the prosecutor came on.
To believe her, you would have to believe that this assailant came into her home for the sole purpose of killing a 10-year-old boy. And yet he also forgot to bring a murder weapon along and used her kitchen knife to do it with. Total nonsense.
Sells had done that on more than one occasion. He often didn't bring weapons with him.
So after watching 2020, Diane sits down and writes Sells a letter.
The other night, I was watching a story on TV about a woman who claimed someone broke into her house and listened to the prosecuting attorney. A person does not come into someone else's home without a weapon and then pull a knife out of the kitchen drawer in the house and use it. I thought that the crime could have been committed by somebody who was very much like Tommy Lynn Sells. And I did not tell him the name of the prosecutor, the name of the case, the town where it occurred, the time when it occurred, nothing like that.
Tommy Lynn Sells writes back, and Diane Fanning is just absolutely blown away.
Tommy responded by writing, about that woman claimed someone broke into her house. Was that like maybe 2 days before my Springfield, Missouri murder? Maybe on a 13th? I was shocked. Joel was murdered on the 13th, and Stephanie Mahaney in Springfield, Missouri on the 15th of that month.
This serial killer on death row nails the exact date of Joel's murder, October the 13th. That's 2 days before he's believed to have kidnapped, sexually assaulted, and killed Stephanie Mahaney.
Okay, so while we were watching that video, I had a look at the list of his murders that the police are thinking that he has committed. There's loads of boys and men on that. It's not only girls. This man, he enjoyed killing people. He didn't kill people for any reason half the time. There was let me just read out to you some of it. So he killed a 39-year-old man, John Cade, with a .32 caliber pistol during a home invasion. Now he wasn't convicted for any of these. Don't forget, these are because the police only convicted him for that one murder of Krystal's friend. That's the only murder he was convicted from, but I suppose they thought, well, he got the maximum punishment. He got his death sentence. He's been executed by lethal injection. And they're probably just, comes down to money and all sorts. But he also claims to have committed his first murder at the age of 15 when he broke into a house where he says he found a man performing fellatio on a boy and killed him in a fit of rage. He killed this other guy, John Cade, with a pistol in a home invasion. I'm looking down for the men, and there were girls in there, but he murdered a 4-year-old boy because he met a 28-year-old woman who had a 4-year-old son, and he says he went to stay at her house. He awoke to find her stealing from his backpack. He beat her to death with her son's baseball bat, and then he killed her 4-year-old son as well because he was a witness. So there's an example of him killing a young lad. Where else? There's a few others down. Yeah, he killed another man who picked him up as a hitchhiker. Keith Dardine, who was 29 years old, picked him up when he was hitchhiking, felt sorry for him and took him home to give him some dinner. And when he got into this man's house, he shot him in the head twice. He then emasculated him, it says. God knows what that means. And then he shot him once more in the head. And he he bludgeoned to death his 3-year-old son, Peter Dardine. I mean, this is a real twonk. This is like twonk of twonks. You know, he might have only been sort of charged with one murder, but when you look at all these others. So the other thing he did, now be prepared for this because it's horrible. So then turned his attention to the guy's wife. So he's killed the guy who picked him up as a hitchhiker, invited him home to give him some dinner because he felt sorry for him. He's killed him, emasculated him. He's bludgeoned to death their 3-year-old son. He then turned his attention to their wife, his wife, who was pregnant. And he beat her so hard she went into labour, gave birth to the child she was carrying, and he killed both her and the child. He beat the newborn to death. This is the sort of person he is. He killed another man who was 51, stabbed him and buried him in a homeless man. He killed another woman and her 5-year-old daughter. Teresa Hall and her 5-year-old daughter, Tiffany Hall, bludgeoned to death with a wooden table leg in their own home. And again, there was another killer that had been accused of that murder, but he later confessed to it. 10-year-old, this is the story we've been looking at. So this the 10-year-old Joel Kirkpatrick was stabbed to death in his bedroom while he was sleeping at night. And that mother that was there talking, she'd said that she'd encountered an intruder wearing a ski mask and fought off the intruder before she fled and got the police. And the murder weapon was a steak knife from her kitchen, and it had been left on the floor outside his bedroom. And she was convicted of that murder, but she has been exonerated now. So, yeah, I tell you, this list goes on. I mean, if I was to sit and read the whole list of, first of all, people that the police do think he killed, which are those ones that I've just read out to you, the police have corroborated that it probably was him. But he says he's responsible for 70 murders. So you imagine he's been roaming around America for God knows how long. He could have, if he was doing murders willy-nilly, and then just fleeing to another part of America, he could have got, because there was no DNA then. This is the thing, when he was doing it in the 70s, it was serial killer's paradise, really, then, because they could, there was no DNA to link them to the crimes. So, yeah, he's a bit of a twonk, as you can imagine. Now we're going to have a look at him actually being interviewed. Just to give you, we know he's a twonk. I think we've more or less established that he is a total twonk. But just in case you're not sure, let's have a look at his interview. Oh my God, he's chilling. To see him being interviewed is absolutely chilling. So we're going to look at this, which is Mind of a Psychopath. It's an interview that he did. This was on Nightline ABC News.
We were all innocent children. A son, a brother, lives with limitless possibilities ahead of them. But what these boys would grow up to become, brutal killers.
Yeah, I do find this very upsetting when you see because they were children once. Were they literally born bad? I believe they were, because quite often when you see these home videos of these are all different killers, not just Tommy. They seem to have had good upbringings, good childhoods, and that. Their parents seem to care about them, their mums seem to care about them. It's just they were bad inside. Maybe they're just wired wrong. I don't know.
Could their brains have provided a roadmap to the sickness that would consume them?
Every mean, vicious psychopath, once upon a time, was an innocent young baby. For some people, the die are cast early in life.
Recent research suggests that psychopathy is evidenced in the brain, and that those who wind up killing over and over may have been born to do so.
I honestly believe that. He's another one, Jeffrey Dahmer. He had a fabulous upbringing. His parents loved him. You know, he didn't have anything in his upbringing. He even says that. Ted Bundy says that. You know, some serial killers themselves admit it's not because of anything that happened to them bad when they were children. You know, and how many people have things bad happen to them when they're children, like her, like Krystal. You know, her parents were drug addicts. She had to bring up her sisters herself. She was left to her own devices. She had to be the mother, you know, to those other siblings. She didn't turn out to be a psychopath. And she, you know, experienced terrible childhood. And then by 10, she'd had a throat slit by a psycho. I think these people, there are definitely something in the brain, definitely.
It's only recently, with the advent of molecular genetics and brain imaging techniques, that we've been able to peer into the minds of murderers really for the first time.
We began our exploration into the inner workings of the brain along a remote highway in Texas, headed for death row, where I sat down with a 45-year-old man who could arguably have one of the baddest brains in America.
The first time I did a shot of dope, it was the best feeling I ever had in my life. And the first time I killed somebody, it was such a rush.
Yeah, you know, they enjoy killing. Look, you can see his eyes are lighting up just talking about it. He enjoys killing. It's not, it's almost like, it's like he enjoys killing like you or I might enjoy, I don't know, a shot of tequila or a cigarette or a spliff or whatever floats your boat. For him, what floats his boat is killing someone. The feeling that it gives him, he doesn't have any feeling towards the victim. Could be a child, could be a girl, it could be a boy, it could be a man, it could be a woman, it could be anyone. He doesn't care who it is. And it is almost, it is an addiction. It is an impulsion. I don't think they can control it. And I feel sorry for them in that sense. But the thing is, it can't be cured either. It can't be cured because it's in them. It's not like a smoking addiction where you can give up smoking, or a drug addiction where you can give up taking drugs. And it's hard, though, having said that. Any addiction is hard to give up, or an alcohol addiction. But I don't think this one can ever be made better, because what tablets are you going to take for that, or what you're going to take instead of that? How are you going to replace that feeling?
And it was just like that shot of dope. Every time I did it, it was that rush again, and I started chasing that high.
Tommy Lynn Sells was once a little boy growing up in St. Louis, but around the age of 14, he says he became addicted to killing.
How many people have you killed?
Lord, I don't know. I don't know.
10?
How dare he say, Lord, I don't know? I mean, does he believe in God? You know, quite often these people, they do believe in God, or say they do, or they find God in prison, don't they? If they think it'll help them get away with it, or get a lighter sentence. But he actually said, Lord, I don't know. How dare he take the Lord's name in vain, a man like that? How dare he? Hope he got an extra year in hell, in purgatory, for that.
Yeah.
20?
Probably.
30?
It's up there.
50?
But see, I'm not Billy the Kid making notches on my holster.
Yeah, Martin Bashir tried to spell before here, because of course, you know, he's not been obviously guilty of the same things that this guy's been guilty of. But yeah, his reputation's down the toilet, isn't it? But yeah, Martin Bashir once was a reputable sort of, that's how he ended up interviewing Princess Diana in the first place, wasn't it? He was a popular interviewer. Another one of the mighty fallen.
So I know it's been a lot.
Psychopaths are individuals who lack conscience, they lack remorse, they lack guilt. That's one of the reasons why they terrorize society so much.
Sells is on death row for one murder, but he's linked to at least 17 more. The drifter's vagrant lifestyle helped.
Yeah, this is what got me. When he's getting off this plane here, when he gets off and he's shaking the guy's hand.
One of the reasons why they terrorize society so much.
Sells is on death row for one murder, but he's linked to at least.
Look, yeah, Mr. Congeniality, just shake his hand, smiling, looking at him in the face. You know, this is what, to me, this is the most terrifying thing about these people, is they literally can live in normal society like normal people. How many times have we seen serial killers or killers? Oh yeah, he's a lovely guy. You know, the neighbours talking. Oh, he's a lovely guy. It's such a surprise because he's so nice. You know, they fit into society. They're not. I mean, he was a drifter, but he was married at one point. He did marry at one point. I don't think he had any children. But he married at one point, but I don't think he could cope with like normal life, and he ended up, they split up and he went back drifting again. But quite often they're not drifters, are they? They've got families, they've got lives, they've got nice jobs, or they go to church every Sunday. They do, look, they're just looking at him, greeting this guy here, looking him straight in the eye as if he hasn't really murdered 70 people, a lot of them children. He's just chilling to me, so chilling. And it's different from somebody killing someone in a fit of rage or for personal reasons or even for personal gain. He does not kill, or he did not kill for any personal gain, really, maybe in robberies and that. He liked killing. That's why he did it. He liked it. Ted Bundy said it the same. He did it because he liked it.
17 more. The drifter's vagrant lifestyle helped him elude police for nearly 15 years as victims turned up from coast to coast.
I am hatred. When you look at me, you look at hate.
When I look at you, I look at hate.
When you look at me, you know what hate is. 'Cause I don't know what love is. Two words I don't like to use is love and sorry, because I'm about hate.
His methods for killing were as random as the people he targeted. He raped many before cutting their throats or beating them, stabbing others and strangling some.
Vicious cycle.
I couldn't help but be grateful for the glass between us.
I don't have no feelings no more. No emotion, no.
They showed much poorer.
Dr. Adrian Ray.
No, the only credit I'll give him is at least he's admitting what he is. You know, he's not pretending that he cares. He's not pretending that he's sorry, because he isn't. You know, there's a lot of killers will do that, won't they? I mean, I suppose, you know, if maybe his appeals had all been used up by then. I don't even know if he tried to appeal. Some murderers do want to be put to death because they know that they're never going to change. Then you get others that try and say they found God and this, that, and the other. He's not trying to make any excuses. That's the only bit of credit you would give him. But he's not sorry. He doesn't have any feelings. He doesn't feel remorse. You know, but at least he's honest, I suppose.
Has studied the brains of people scientifically determined to be psychopaths.
One of the key differences that we find in the brains of psychopaths is that there's a structural impairment to part of the brain called the amygdala. This is a part of the brain very much involved in the generation of emotion. It was structurally deformed in the psychopaths.
And I like to watch the eyes fade, the pupil fade.
What do you like about that?
It's just like setting their soul free.
I like to watch their eyes. A lot of killers say that, serial killers. They like to look in people's eyes and see them die. It's horrible, isn't it? They like to see the light go out in their eyes. It's horrible, that. Must give him a sense of power. Well, he's saying, I'm feeling like I'm setting them free. And that just shows again how lucky Krystal was, because he didn't hang around long enough with Krystal to see her die. He was on his way out, wasn't he? He was going anyway. He was probably thinking he'd already spent too long in that house, in that trailer. He'd murdered her best friend. And so he slit Krystal's throat, but didn't wait to see the light go out in her eyes. Luckily for her. But anyway, what a horrible man. I mean, this is real evil. You know, I believe in evil. I do. I believe in God or good, and I believe in evil. I think you can't believe in one without the other. For every your life is a constant battle between good and evil. You know, and you can call it what you like. You can call it your conscience. You can call it anything you want. But basically what it comes down to is we all know really what the right thing is, but we're constantly, sometimes doing the wrong thing is more lucrative to us because it's more in our favor, our benefit. And we're in that battle. And most of us, we win that battle, don't we? If we've, we know it's not right, even though you might feel like bloody, doing some, people might upset you. You know, when people say, oh, I'll kill you for doing that. But of course, you're not going to kill him, are you? You're not going to kill him. It's just a thing that people say, or I could have killed him. Or, these are common things that we say, but we don't mean it. But, most of us know exactly, what the line is to draw. You might get angry with someone. Really angry with someone. You might think some terrible things, but actually doing them is another matter. But people like this, he can't stop himself from doing it. He can't, and I think he was literally born that way. I don't think it would matter who he was, how he'd been brought up, if his father had died when he was 11 or not, or whatever happened. It doesn't matter because, there's so many people who do experience such terrible childhoods and terrible things that happen to them when they're young, but they do not go and murder innocent children.
They just don't have those normal feelings of revulsion and disgust.
They are the last images of the Dardeen family.
One sadistic crime Sells confessed to shows the callous, unemotional disregard for human life typical of psychopaths. A 30-year-old mother, 7.5 months pregnant at home with her 3-year-old son, both bludgeoned to death.
What are you thinking and feeling when you kill someone?
It's just like that drug. I'm after that drug again. I don't have an on and off switch. I'm just after that drug. I'm after that film.
During the beating, Eileen Dardeen went into spontaneous labor, giving birth to a daughter who investigators believed to be alive at the time. The new baby was also beaten to death, and the body of Dardeen's husband turned up a day later, shot 3 times in the head.
I wonder if you could just tell me what happened as you were killing her. Did she give birth to a baby?
You're pushing your luck.
I'm sorry.
Let's not get into blood and guts because that's what you're trying to get into.
Sells blames much of his murderous.
God, I tell you what, I mean, I'd love to interview a serial killer. I really would. Just to, I think that it's thing about true crime. It's if you're interested in true crime, it's a dark world, isn't it? And I can't help it. I am interested in it. I don't know why. I was thinking about it this morning, and I link a lot of it to the fact of being stalked by my ex-partner and feeling that I could easily have ended up like one of these women who are murdered by their ex-partners because, it was only because I was lucky enough to be able to hide where I was from him. And sometimes, but then I was thinking about it and I thought, even when I was little, I was always interested in horror stories and things like that. Maybe that's the way I was born. God, when you look at this guy's eyes. It's always in the eyes, isn't it? It's always in the eyes. He's got like this eye isn't too bad, and then this eye is as evil as you could imagine. I did used to read a lot of horror stories and things like that. I used to watch, those of you of a certain age middle-class women and men of a certain age. No, sorry, I'm only joking there about Greg Wallace. But those of you of a certain age, you will remember Hammer House of Horrors, like Christopher Lee playing Dracula and the Frankenstein films. And I used to watch all those when I was little, really. I was very little. And even now, if I watch any of those things, Frankenstein especially, I am absolutely terrified. It fills me with terror. And I know it's ridiculous. It's not even good special effects. It's that they're the most sort of, when they talk about Hammer House of Horrors, it should be Hammy House of Horrors. They're not exactly, convincing, are they? But even now, if I watch them, the dread that comes over me. So it's obviously an interest that I've had for a long time. And it is a dark world, the world of true crime is a dark world. And I was thinking about, why am I so fascinated with it then? But sometimes, first of all, I think you want to try and understand it, don't you? Why do these people do this? What is the psychology of it? And then when you do get a story of positivity, like Krystal's story of survival, and he's so he's so dark and she's so light. She gives you the positivity and makes you feel good, whereas he gives you the absolute heebie-jeebies. And thank God he's not on this planet anymore, to be honest. Anyway, he had no last words when it came to his execution. They asked him if he had anything to say. He said no. That was it. He just started snoring, apparently, as the poison was administered, and then he was gone.
Rage on sexual abuse he says he suffered as a child.
You also killed children.
Some get killed, yes.
Why would that happen?
I didn't want them to live through the pain I lived through.
It's biology plus environment. It's biology coming together with environmental insults, which raise the odds of an individual becoming a violent criminal.
So he said, I didn't want them to live through the pain that I went through. Oh, for fuck's sake. So it wasn't his. I didn't want them. They were probably having a lovely time with their parents. Oh my God. Anyway, it's pointless trying to put logic to a person like this.
Criminal offender.
I tried to get in this door right here.
2 days after his final murder, Tommy Lynn Sells walks police through the crime scene.
And I opened the window all the way up, about like this. And I climbed in. Okay.
We kind of stayed up a little later, and we got in a little fight about where we were all going to sleep. We laid there and talked a bit. We talked about, at the time, like Britney Spears and NSYNC.
Krystal Surles, 10 years old at the time, was sleeping over at her friend Katie Harris's. A decade later, that night is still fresh in her memory.
I woke up startled a little bit and out of nowhere, and I was kind of confused to a loud noise.
I woke this girl up.
Her friend Katie was asleep on the bottom bunk.
I cut her bra.
I kind of just leaned my head up a little bit, and I could see that there was this scary older man that I'd never seen before.
I stabbed her here, and then she jumped back, and then I cut her like this right here.
He had a hand on her mouth and the knife on her neck, and she's looking at me, and he just cut her throat, and she fell to the ground.
And she fell down right here.
I heard Katie at the bottom of the bed, on the floor at the bottom of the bunk bed. She was gasping for air and choking, she couldn't breathe.
13-year-old Katie Harris lay dying on the floor.
Sorry, I didn't know they were going to show that picture. Otherwise, I would have given you a warning. I didn't see that before. I hate, why do they show these photos? It really makes me angry. Imagine having your loved one shown.
About to shut off the light, and he looked one last time, and he noticed that I was there. And he didn't hesitate at all. Just shut the door, came right back towards me with the knife.
I walked over here, and I went like this.
The only thing that he said is, move your hands, because I had him up here, and he reached over the top bunk and cut my neck.
Sells sliced Krystal's neck, severing her windpipe and grazing her carotid artery.
I am very sure he thought he killed me.
Krystal Surles identified Tommy Lynn Sells as her assailant and her friend's killer, putting an end to his homicidal spree.
Do you remember the little girl who survived?
Yes. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about her.
What did you do to her, sir?
There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about her. Good. Now, look his face, though. Probably hating on her because she was the one who, if it wasn't for her surviving, he would have probably carried on doing these things. She brought him to justice. She did, and good for her. Good for her. And when I'm just wondering what he means that he says, there's not a day goes by doesn't think about her. In what way does he think about her? Does he regret leaving her alive as he went out, or is he sorry? I don't think he says he doesn't feel any sorrow, so I doubt if it's that.
Her neck was cut.
How did you do that?
With a knife.
Do you have anything to say to her, the little girl who survived?
I guess you'll relay this message too.
It's very difficult to control a psychopath. They're the person in control. And in fact, in an interview, psychopaths tend to take control of the interviewing.
What's your name?
Martin.
Martin?
Yes. Can I call you Tommy?
Oh, without a doubt.
What's your name? He says, it's just been interviewed for him for about an hour and he doesn't know what his name is. I bet Martin thought, Martin. I mean, you would be, or at least you've got the glass in front of you and you know he can't get to you, but you would be pretty, he's pretty terrifying. This interview reminds me a bit of, Hannibal Lecter in The Silence of the Lambs. In talking to someone like this, so far removed from anything you can imagine in their way of thinking, it must be absolutely terrifying.
I don't think she really wants to hear what I got to say.
What did you see in his eyes?
To be honest, he seemed blank. I mean, there was no emotion. It wasn't hard for him. All he would say is, move your hands. It was just, after what I'd seen him do, he had no emotion in his eyes.
That emptiness evident as we spoke.
So what if I called you something that you didn't like? And you'd think about killing me?
Well, if we was in a fight and get your head down in the concrete, then...
When I watched this the first time and he did that slap on the thing, honest God, it made me jump. I mean, he's sort of enjoying that. Look, he's got pleasure on his face there, imagining smashing him to the pavement. Let's just watch that again. God, he's a terrifying man, or he was. Thank God he's not on. Honest to God, I don't believe in the death penalty, but I can't say that I'm sorry about this guy.
Well, if we was in a fight and get your head down in the concrete, then so be it. But
what happens when my head goes down to the concrete?
Well, what do you think happens? It cracks like a coconut.
And then what happens?
You die.
I think he was getting excited there, to be honest. Actually, there's lots of interviews with serial on the telly, which is, sorry, on the YouTube and that, but it does remind me, Martin Bashir was a good interviewer. He was a good interviewer. Of course, he's been totally discredited now and all this about Princess Diana, and maybe I should do a video about that one day, but he was a good interviewer. That's how he ended up with that interview, I suppose, with Diana. But anyway, we won't go into that, but that was a good interview that he did with Tommy. Tommy, what a scary man. But that 10-year-old girl outsmarted him. So this is what it sounds awful to say, I've enjoyed telling this story, but I have, because, it is a positive story. So it's technically a Christmas story, but it was actually New Year's Eve. This happened in 1999, 31st of December. But it's still a positive story. I wanted to stick with the sort of crime. You know, at the end of the day, I'm a true crime channel. I've got to stick to that genre. And but I wanted to tell a positive story. And this little 10-year-old girl, she brought to an end the reign of terror that, to be honest, nobody else could, because she, oh, look, there's Rocky settling down on the chair there. She stopped this twonk. It was her who did it. And then, yeah, as Martin was asking him the question there, what do you think of her? And he says, I think about her every day. He's probably thinking, oh, I should have done a better job of slitting her throat. So this is her. She's survived. She's having a life. I think she's married now. As far as I know, she's probably had children by now. So she was 10 in 1999. So she'll be in her 30s now. She's in the prime of her life. I hope she's having a good life. Whereas this twonk, he's gone, dead. Oh, and that reminds me, actually, so I've got one more thing in this story to tell you. So you think, oh, great, after he's like, you know, gone from this world, she can get on with survive. She survived. She can get on with her life. Oh, but there's always another twonk out there, isn't there, who wants to ruin your life for whatever reason. So this family, although they've been through everything that you could possibly go through, family and friends, you know, murder, survival, court cases, watching him be executed, you know, the resolution of that. Oh no, because then let's have a look, in what year was it? 20 years after a serial killer slit the throats of 2 girls in a bedroom in Texas, killing one of them, a Florida man. What's going on in Florida? Are all the nutters in America concentrated in Florida? What's going on? A Florida man began harassing the victim's family and threatened to kill the surviving girl. So they've got rid of, let me share this actually. We've got rid of the twonk, you know, the original twonk. Now we've got another twonk. So there's Tommy. He'd been executed. He's gone. And some other twonk. George, what's his name? George somebody. Oh, Alvin Willie George. In 2016, a Florida man with no connection to Sells case began sending photos of the crime scene to the surviving victim and her siblings who live in Idaho. And he ended up pleading guilty in 2021 to cyber stalking and was sentenced to 51 months in prison. So he's probably be out. Oh no, he's released. He's due to be released in 2027. So George began messaging Krystal, who is only identified by her initials, in November 2016. He researched the infamous case and used multiple Facebook accounts to message his victims. So this guy, so this poor girl, she's been through enough, and her and her family. Now she's got one of these trolls, you know, you trolls out there. What is wrong with you? In fact, these candles that I've lit, they're for you as well, because you are pathetic people. Anyone who could just sit there, if you haven't got anything nice to say, just don't say anything. You know, what is the point in trolling people? Anyone, but you know, we see trolls obviously on the internet, but nothing like this. I mean, imagine someone trolling you. You've survived that serial killer, and somebody's trolling you. Now, the only thing, I mean, she was strong before, this girl. She'd be even stronger now. You know, luckily, when you are a strong person, the trolls, they are like water off a duck's back, because they're sad, aren't they? You know, that's how I feel. I think, like, things I've gone through in my life, these trolls are nothing. But, you know, you never know. They can always hit that chord with you on the day you're having a bad day or you're feeling like shit anyway. troll comes along, says something horrible, and you think, oh God, yeah. Just think about what you're saying to people. What you're saying to people who are already damaged because of what they've been through. What is wrong with you? Anyway, so this cyber stalker or troll, basically, isn't he? Used multiple Facebook accounts to message his victims. He began by sending a crime scene photo of Katie to Krystal. Oh, that's a nice thing to do, isn't it? Yeah, your best friend died when she was 13. Yeah, do you want to have a look at what she looked like? Then in April 2017, he began sending her different messages. How did it feel to watch your friend get murdered and get your throat slit? Apparently, he wrote. Now, don't forget, these trolls have always existed in different ways. It reminded me of the Yorkshire Ripper, the guy that sent his tape recording in that led the police off course because it had a Geordie accent. And everybody thought he was a Geordie then, the Yorkshire Ripper, but of course he wasn't. It was Peter Sutcliffe. And how that man who did that wasted police time, why would he even do that anyway? Who would sit at home? Who would sit at home? Well, it's like these internet trolls now, isn't it? That all they do is sit at home making, I don't know, they've got all this time to make videos about other people or... Honest to God, it's so beyond me. It's so beyond me. I just don't understand. I don't understand people being angry with people, or you watch a YouTuber, you don't like them, or you don't like what they've got to say, or whatever. Just why? Just you're giving them more attention anyway. So that would be what would have happened years ago, like with the Yorkshire Ripper case. He made a tape recording and sent it in. I remember as a teenager in Manchester, you went upstairs on the bus and this tape was being played. Do you recognise this voice? On the bus. Because they was convinced that this guy was really the Yorkshire Ripper. Of course, he wasn't. So it took the Yorkshire Ripper, there's probably a few women died because he deflected attention from the real investigation to a false, going a false way. In other messages, he wrote sexually explicit threats and even revealed he knew her home address. So he doxed her as well. So all this that goes on YouTube now, it's nothing new under the sun. It's just done in a different way. The doxing, the threats. He said he knew her home address as well as the name of her child. He then began sending messages to Krystal's siblings, including one in which he claimed he would do worse than Tommy. So FBI agents interviewed him in his Florida home. God knows what goes on in Florida. It seems like most of the cases we look at are from Florida. And in December 2017, and he admitted to creating the Facebook accounts and sending the threatening messages. So in addition to having served nearly 5 years in prison, George will have to pay $525.31 in restitution. Ooh. I mean, 5 years in prison is quite good, I suppose. But, really, it probably should be more. I know he hasn't actually killed anyone, but fancy harassing someone who is already a victim. Why would you even do that? These are really sad people that all they can do is sit home and think how they're going to upset someone. It's really weird, But, I don't know, he must be quite a sad character, that I suppose. But I'm running out of sympathy now for these people. Trolls are cowards. They are complete cowards. Most of the people that troll on here, on internet, on YouTube, they're not even genuine accounts. They haven't got a proper... They're not real people. Well, they are real people, but they don't use their real names. They use fake accounts. They use fake photos. They can't say it to your face as a human being. If I've got something to say about somebody, I'll just say it. I'm saying it openly. You know, anyone that I criticise, I try not to criticise people. But, you know, sometimes I do feel like I want to criticise people. But, you know, I am me criticise. I'm not doing it beyond, I'm not going onto their accounts and pretending to be someone else. I'm asking a question, or, you know, if you've got something to say to me, say it to me, you know, as you. And if what I'm saying is not right, then tell me that it's not right and show me evidence. So I always do that. I never try and hide behind. So I don't have any false accounts that I ever go on anybody's YouTube account or a Facebook or anything. That is just, you know, that is so cowardly and pathetic to do. If you've got something to say it openly, you know. Anyway, this is a whole different thing, of course. To attack a victim of a crime like that, you know, and try and make it worse after they're probably only just recovering for what happened to them, what genuinely happened to them, like when they became a victim. You know, the guy's been executed, they're building a family and they're getting on with their life, and then they start that. Very sad, very sad. And it's inexplicable to me, inexplicable para mí. Okay, so I hope you've found that story interesting. So to me, that tale is a tale of survival. It's a tale of resilience against adversity, even from a 10-year-old girl. But also, it's a tale, if you like, that proves that doesn't matter if you've had a shit childhood. No one had a shitter childhood than this girl, with 2 drug addict parents and having to bring up her siblings herself. But she didn't turn into this guy who's trying to blame his childhood, the reason that, you know, he's a twonk on the fact that he had a bad childhood. It's nothing to do with it. He's just a twonk. He's a complete twonk. He was born bad. He was born bad. He was wired wrong. And some people are wired wrong and some people are wired right. And maybe childhoods might make it worse if you're already wired wrong. But, you know, I think it doesn't matter what childhood. You can be born into privilege. If you're a twonk, you'll still be a twonk. And if you're born into the worst sort of environment that's imaginable, if you're not a twonk, you still won't be a twonk. That's the moral of this story, if you like. Anyway, I may be back later, I'm not sure, but I'll be back at some point as always. And thank you so much to everyone who watches, everyone who subscribes. If you're not subscribed, please think about subscribing. It's free. Please remember to leave your DNA on the like button and share. If you think somebody else might be interested in watching this video, please share the video. Special thanks, as always, to my members. For those of you who have requested your Christmas gift, all my paid members will get a Christmas gift. To those of you that have requested it, they're all on the way at the moment. Anybody who's requested, I'm up to date with sending things. I sent the last one off this morning, but I haven't checked my emails today. But it's just a thank you to say thank you so much for being a member of my channel, supporting my channel. Thank you to those of you who gift memberships, and thank you to those of you who send super stickers, buy Ko-fis, or PayPal me. I've received so much support. I'm so grateful for it. Thank you. And I'll see you really soon in the next video. And until then, may your God always go with you, just like Krystal's God went with her that night. Thank you and goodbye.